Have you ever wondered if a single week could truly transform your life? Join me as I share my journey of how I embraced Stoicism and completely reshaped my mindset in just 7 days. Can we really change our perspectives and improve ourselves for the better? The answer might surprise you. Let's dive into the powerful principles of Stoicism and discover how they can lead to profound personal growth. I remember the days when life felt chaotic. Every morning, I woke up with an uneasy feeling that I wasn't living the life I wanted. The distractions, the stress, and the overwhelming tasks were constant companions. Felt like a treadmill, running and running, but never really arriving. I think we've all had moments like this, where you're stuck, unsure of how to regain control of your life. This was my ordinary world, before Stoicism entered the picture. Before we start, please leave a comment and subscribe to the channel to support our journey. And now let's go straight to the point. It wasn't as if I didn't want to change. I did, but like most people, I didn't know how. I thought that success and happiness were things that came from external achievements, from the approval of others or from material success. But Stoicism taught me something different. My introduction to Stoicism wasn't something I planned. In fact, I came across it almost by accident, through a random quote by Epictetus that read, "Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems." It was simple, but it struck me deeply. In that moment, I realized how much of my life had been dominated by unnecessary worries, things I couldn't control or that hadn't even happened yet. I always thought that life was about managing the chaos around me, but what if I could shift the way I viewed that chaos instead? That idea of focusing not on what was happening outside but on my internal reactions was revolutionary. It was like someone had handed me a key to a door I didn't even know existed. The invitation was clear: shift your perspective and you can shift your life. That's when the adventure began for me. It wasn't about controlling the uncontrollable. It was about mastering the mind. This was the call to adventure I never expected, but one I couldn't ignore. At first, I resisted. Stoicism seemed outdated. I mean, here I was, dealing with the fast-paced chaos of modern life, and this philosophy from ancient Greece and Rome was supposed to help me? It felt irrelevant at first, more like a history lesson than a way of life. But as I dug deeper, I realized how wrong I was. The more I learned, the more I understood just how practical these teachings could be. And so I decided to take the leap. I committed to changing the way I approached my life, to see if I could make a real transformation in just 1 week. Could Stoicism really be the key to breaking out of my old habits? It was time to find out. Like any journey into the unknown, I had my doubts. In fact, the moment I decided to embrace Stoicism was the moment my mind started to fight back. What if this doesn't work? What if Stoicism is just another one of those empty philosophies? The mind is funny like that. It clings to what's familiar, even if it's painful, even if it's not serving you. I was comfortable in my chaos, not because it was pleasant, but because it was known. There's something about uncertainty that scares us, and the idea of changing my mindset felt like stepping off a cliff into the unknown. And that's when the resistance really kicked in. My mind began crafting all sorts of reasons to stay the same, to avoid stepping out of the comfort zone. What if you fail? What if this is just another self-help trend? But then I remembered something I'd read from Seneca. He said, "He who suffers before it is necessary, suffers more than is necessary." In other words, most of the pain we experience comes from the fears we create in our own minds. I realized that the only thing standing between me and the change I wanted was fear. Fear of letting go of the familiar, fear of stepping into the unknown. So I did what Seneca advised. I faced my doubts head-on. I reminded myself that fear and doubt are natural, but they're not necessarily real. They're just thoughts that I didn't have to believe. It was a turning point. I could either stay stuck in my old ways, comfortable in my misery, or I could take the leap and see what happened. One of the greatest gifts of Stoicism is the wisdom passed down by its great thinkers: Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. They became like mentors to me, guiding me through their teachings, which felt incredibly relevant even centuries later. These weren't just philosophers. They were people who had faced real struggles, people who had learned to master their emotions and navigate the chaos of life. Epictetus' words really stuck with me during this time. He once said, "We are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens." I realized how often I'd let external events dictate my emotions. Whether it was a stressful day at work, a rude comment, or some minor inconvenience, I allowed those things to control my peace of mind. But Epictetus reminded me that I had the power to control my reaction. The world could be chaotic, but my mind didn't have to be. Then there was Seneca. One of his teachings that resonated with me was this: "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." How often had I wasted time worrying, procrastinating, or being distracted by things that didn't matter? Seneca's words hit me hard. Time is the one thing we can never get back, and every moment I spent in fear or self-doubt was a moment I was losing forever. That awareness started to change the way I approached my days. Marcus Aurelius also became a key mentor during this period. His meditations felt like they were written for me, as if he was speaking directly to the struggles I was facing. His famous line, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one," was a wake-up call. It was no longer about talking or thinking about change. It was about action. Marcus wasn't interested in philosophy for philosophy's sake. He was interested in practical wisdom. He urged me to stop analyzing and start living the principles I was learning. With these mentors by my side, I began applying their lessons to my life one day at a time. When something stressful happened, I'd pause and remember Epictetus' advice. It's not the event itself, but my thoughts about it that cause me pain. When I found myself wasting time, I'd remember Seneca's warning about the preciousness of time. And when I felt tempted to procrastinate or avoid something difficult, I'd recall Marcus Aurelius' call to action, to just be the person I knew I could be. These weren't abstract ideas anymore. They were becoming real, tangible tools that I could use every day to improve my life. And slowly, I started to see the transformation take shape. I remember the exact moment I realized how much power emotions had over me. It was a stressful day at work. One of those days when nothing seems to go right. My mind was racing, frustration bubbling under the surface, and before I knew it, I lashed out at someone who didn't deserve it. The guilt was instant, but the damage was done. For a long time, I thought these moments were just a part of life, that emotional outbursts were inevitable. But Stoicism, especially the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, showed me a different way. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That sentence hit me harder than any self-help advice I had ever come across. The world around me, whether it's the chaos at work, the traffic jam on the way home, or the rude comment from a stranger, wasn't something I could control. But my response to it, that was entirely within my grasp. It wasn't easy at first. Emotional resilience isn't something you build overnight. I had to train my mind like a muscle, catching myself in those moments where frustration or anger would normally take over. I started small, reminding myself to pause before reacting. Just a few seconds of stillness, of breathing deeply, was enough to stop the flood of negative emotions. It was almost as if, by pausing, I gave myself permission to choose a different response. Instead of reacting with anger, I could choose calm. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, I could choose to let go. And this practice of emotional resilience began to spill into every part of my life. When things didn't go as planned, I didn't panic anymore. I became less reactive, less driven by the constant emotional highs and lows that used to control me. And what surprised me the most, the more I practiced emotional resilience, the more control I felt over my life. The power of mastering your emotions lies in this: you become unshakable. Life doesn't stop throwing challenges at you, but with Stoicism, you learn to face them with grace. The emotional storms come, but they pass, and you remain standing, untouched by their chaos. That's real strength, being able to weather any storm without letting it break you. Silence, what an underestimated tool. Before I embraced Stoicism, I always thought that to be confident, you had to be the loudest voice in the room, the one always ready with an answer. But I learned something that changed everything. True confidence often speaks loudest when you say nothing at all. The Stoics, particularly Epictetus, valued the power of silence. He once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." It's such a simple idea, but the wisdom behind it is profound. I started to practice it, deliberately choosing moments of silence when I would have normally spoken out of impulse or nervousness. At first, it felt awkward. I was so used to filling every gap in conversation, to constantly explaining myself, proving my point. But the more I embraced silence, the more I realized how powerful it could be. Silence gave me space. Space to think, space to observe, space to truly understand what was going on around me. In silence, I found clarity. And here's the thing people noticed. When you don't rush to speak, when you take your time, it shows a different kind of confidence. It shows that you're not afraid of what others think, that you're comfortable enough to sit in the quiet and wait for the right moment. I started to realize that in those moments of silence, I wasn't just giving myself time to reflect. I was also commanding respect. In social situations, it became clear that those who speak less often are often the ones others listen to more intently. When you choose your words carefully, they hold more weight. People pay attention because they know that when you do speak, it's thoughtful, deliberate. Silence became my superpower, not because it made me mysterious or aloof, but because it grounded me in a deep sense of self-assurance. The world we live in today is noisy. Everyone's talking, but few are truly listening. When you embrace the power of silence, you stand out not by being the loudest voice, but by being the calmest presence in the room. It's a subtle but transformative shift, one that changes the way you engage with the world around you. Curiosity was something I thought I had outgrown. As adults, we tend to believe that we already know enough, that asking too many questions might make us seem inexperienced or unsure. But Stoicism taught me that genuine curiosity is one of the most powerful tools for personal growth, and it's something we should never lose. Seneca once wrote, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." This line stuck with me because it reminded me that life is a never-ending process of learning, of discovery. The more curious I became, the more I realized how much there was still to explore, not just about the world, but about myself. Curiosity is not just about seeking new information. It's about approaching every experience with an open mind. I started to ask more questions, not just of others, but of myself. What was driving my reactions? Why did certain things trigger me? Where could I improve? And most importantly, how could I approach life with a sense of wonder again? Like when I was a child. Asking these questions changed everything. It helped me let go of assumptions and judgments, opening my mind to new perspectives. I found that the more curious I became, the deeper my relationships grew. People respond to genuine curiosity because it shows that you're truly engaged in the moment, that you care about more than just the surface-level answers. In conversations, instead of rushing to share my own opinions, I started asking more questions. And the results were transformative. I discovered that people are eager to share when they feel truly listened to, when they sense that your curiosity is genuine and not just a means to an end. But here's the biggest thing I learned. Curiosity keeps you humble. It reminds you that no matter how much you think you know, there's always more to learn. Life becomes a series of lessons, and each day brings something new. When you embrace genuine curiosity, you stop seeing challenges as obstacles and start seeing them as opportunities to grow. And that's where the real reward lies, not in having all the answers, but in the journey of finding them. By the end of that first week, I could feel the change. Life wasn't perfect, far from it, but I had learned to approach it with more resilience, more confidence, and more curiosity. The Stoic principles didn't change the world around me, but they transformed the way I viewed and interacted with that world. I was no longer overwhelmed by the chaos. Instead, I had tools to manage it. The transformation wasn't flashy, but it was profound. In just 1 week, Stoicism had shifted my perspective and given me a sense of inner peace that I hadn't felt in years. This journey isn't exclusive to me. It's available to anyone willing to take the first step. Start today. Commit to 1 week of living according to Stoic principles. I promise you the change will be profound. Leave a comment and share your own experiences with Stoicism. Let's build a community where we all grow together, stronger and more resilient every day.